Welcome to the Point. Recently, the Middle East has been at the forefront of the news. Israel's been a central player in what's been going on. The geopolitical activities surrounding Israel have captured the world's attention. Israel was front and center in a brief war with Iran. We've seen a dramatic rise in expressed anti-Semitism around the world, and even an epic verbal brawl between Senator Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson over Israel gained national and worldwide attention. To understand what's going on, it would be helpful to recognize Israel's history, its emergence as a modern sovereign state, understand Israel's role in God's plan, and grasp Israel's prophesied future. So let's start at the beginning. Around 2100 BC, God appeared to a man named Abraham who lived in the Babylonian region of the land of the Chaldeans. God declared that from Abraham a nation would be generated by God and would be considered God's chosen people. God also told Abraham that he would provide his people with land. And finally, God said he would bless Abraham, and the nation that he would make out of Abraham would be blessed. And that those who bless Abraham, God would bless, and he would curse those who would dishonor Abraham. We can read this in Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3, where it says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." In this text, three key points are highlighted for us. First, it is land. Second, there are people. And third, a blessing. Genesis 12 marks the beginning, the seed of what we now know as the nation of Israel. The Old Testament is about the development of Israel and its role in God's eternal plan. Israel becomes central to God's purposes. Let's look at the land first. It was central to Israel's identity. Later in Genesis chapter 15, God outlined to Abraham the boundaries of the land that he promised to give to his people. In Genesis 15, it says, "On the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaim, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites." At that time, Israel was not yet a nation. It was a household without a name. However, God prophetically revealed to Abraham the parameters of the land that would be his descendants' inheritance. While God did not specify the exact boundaries, he did identify the land occupied by the then current nation groups already inhabiting the land he was giving to Abraham and Israel. There are multiple perspectives as to the boundaries of the land promised to Abraham in Genesis 15. This is a rough idea of one of the perspectives of the land that was described to Abraham as the land of promise for his descendants. The land is a big deal, as it is for any nation. It has been and still is the center of controversy and war for millennia. The second thing we're going to look at would be the people. God promises Abraham this people. The people were eventually narrowed down from a broad swath of Abraham's descendants to the particular descendants of Isaac and Jacob, from whom the eventual 12 tribes of Israel were identified. While Abraham is the progenitor of the entire Middle East region of people groups, it is Israel, the line of Isaac and Jacob, to whom God was referring when he promised to make Abraham a great nation and a blessing. The third thing we'll look at briefly is the blessing. God's promise to Abraham included making him a blessing. God said that he would bless Abraham, and then all the families of the earth would be blessed through him. The ultimate blessing referred to regarding Abraham is that of Jesus Christ. In him all the world can be blessed, as referred to in Galatians chapter 3 and verse 16, which says, "Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made." He does not say, "and to seeds, as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, who is Christ." An essential aspect of the promise made by God was that those who honor or bless Abraham will be blessed. Those who curse Abraham will be cursed. Over the 4,000 years since God's encounter with Abraham, The world has seen this to be the case. So here's the challenge. The family of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob eventually ended up in Egypt due to a series of events surrounding a famine. 400 years later, when the tribes of Israel left Egypt under Moses, they were to occupy this land that had been promised to Abraham. However, they failed to do so due to their fear and a lack of faith. The result was Israel wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, and the older generation being killed during those 40 years of wandering. Under Joshua, Israel entered the land and began to occupy it. Kings Saul, David, and Solomon expanded the occupation of the land God had promised for his people, Abraham's descendants. Due to Israel's centuries of rebellion against God, they were finally driven from their land into exile. Israel, comprising of the northern 10 tribes, was exiled in 722 BC, and Judah, the southern 2 tribes, in 597 BC. They were exiled under Assyrians, Babylonians, Greeks, and finally the Romans, with a prophecy that they would one day return to the land. The Jews remained in the land continuously since Xerxes allowed them to return in 538 BC. But they did not control the land, except briefly under the Hasmonean rule in 142 BC. The land changed hands about a dozen times after that, with the Roman Emperor Hadrian renaming it from Judea to Palestina in approximately 135 AD in response to an unsuccessful Israeli revolt. Rome resurrected the name as an insult to the Jews. The land was fought over for centuries among the Babylonians and the Persians from 438 to 333 BC, the Greeks from 333 to 63 BC, the Romans from 63 BC to 324 AD, the Byzantines from 324 to 638 AD, the Muslims from 638 to 1099, the Crusaders from 1095 to 1298, and the Ottoman Turks from 1517 to 1917, at which point Great Britain gained control of the land. At various times in the 1800s, especially in the 20th century, Jews began returning to their biblical land, especially after Britain gained control over the land following World War I in 1917. Still more returned in the 1930s as Hitler came to power and began to spread his anti-Semitic ideology throughout Europe. Then the Jews who survived the concentration camps came in waves back to the land from World War II to the present. With this background, the scene is now set for addressing the rise of a modern state of Israel, which we're going to do in our next episode.